Hi, I'm Matthew, and I'm going to tell you about the clothing that I'm wearing here to cope with the extreme cold conditions in the Arctic on Svalbard. First thing I'm going to talk to you about is base layers. I'm going to talk to you about my boxer shorts first. Back home I'd wear stuff like this. It's made out of cotton. Cotton up here in the Arctic is absolutely useless for base layers because it gets cold when it gets wet. So any sweat on these and you're stuck with cold underwear, which is not pleasant in any way, shape or form. What I'd wear if I'm doing exercise in temperate climates or in hot climates, I'd wear something synthetic which wicks and which relieves that sweat problem. Unfortunately, they also have the same problem. They're cold when they're wet. They might dry fairly quickly, but it's not enough. So technical synthetic materials for boxer shorts is also out, unless it's mixed with something like merino wool. Now, wool stays warm when it's wet, so it's much more comfortable against the skin. The solution that RAV have come up with is to mix about 65% merino wool with 35% polyester, and they've put some silver in as well because the polyester would retain odours in a way that merino wool doesn't, and that helps to eliminate, it's got an antibacterial property. These I wear a lot when I'm trekking, but out here I'm not quite sure. I haven't decided yet whether they're inferior to the merino wool, but I tend to not wear these if I'm going on a long trip, just to be sure. What I do wear is these by Quechua. These are 100%. Obviously, it's got an elastic waistband, but apart from that, these are 100% merino wool. And these are what I trust if I'm going out on a big trip because they're warm when they're wet. They don't retain odour, so they're very, very good for using for multiple days if necessary. So those are boxer shorts. In terms of my feet next, then on the subject of merino wool for a base layer for my feet, I decided I was going to buy these and bring these. These are 100% merino wool, but unfortunately I haven't been able to use them because they're too small. They're the right size for my feet in ordinary conditions, but here they restrict my circulation too much. So with my circulation restricted, my feet get cold too quickly. So these I can't use, although I would love to. What I have here instead is these, which are not merino wool, they're just ordinary wool, but they're surprisingly comfortable against the skin. These are made specifically for people who've got diabetes. They have no elastic in the tops, which is why they look quite deformed. They fit me perfectly well, but they're big enough to move without restricting my circulation, so I love these. These are what I wear every day, and whether I'm doing a short walk outside or whether I'm sitting at home or whether I'm out on a multi-day expedition. These things are fantastic. So that is my base layer for my feet. The next layer, if I'm just walking around town, I would use ordinary trekking socks. These have a significant proportion of merino wool, but they also have technical synthetic fibre which has wicking properties. These are great for walking around town for a short period, but I don't trust these when I'm out in extreme conditions and I don't have a warm environment that I'm about to go into. So these I don't take on long expeditions. Instead, I take these which are 100% merino wool. They don't have to be merino, but they do have to be wool. They're not in contact with the skin, so the softness of the merino wool isn't important. I like the fact that they don't retain odours, but wool socks would be absolutely fine and do the job. I use these as a mid layer if I'm walking around town instead of the mix ones that I showed you earlier. But I also use these as a mid layer if I'm going in very cold conditions and I want to put a bigger sock over the top of those. So that's my mid layer. My next layer up would be these. These are smart wool, so it's a merino wool mix, which has a lot of merino wool in them. They're big, they're bulky, they've got a higher ankle than the hiking socks. If I just compare them, then you'll be able to see. They're very, very good for keeping my ankles warm. I've got them a size bigger than my ordinary socks, so they fit over the top quite well. So when it's starting to get very cold, then these over the top of my mid layer are absolutely fine. But if I'm in extremely cold conditions, then I'll wear these as my mid layer, and on top of these I'll add my alpaca ski socks. Again, we're going up a length in terms of the sock itself. The ankle is significantly higher. The material, I suspect that it's slightly warmer based on the reviews than ordinary wool or merino wool, but it's difficult to tell. What I can say is they're very durable. They've seen a lot of use and they don't look too worn. They're very, very warm when I put them on, and I've got them again a size bigger than my mountaineering socks, so that these can go underneath quite comfortably. And between those three, those are what I use for insulating my feet. So base layers, next thing to look at would be the base layers that I use as leggings, and the base layer that I use on my upper body.